That's who Jesus pointed to, the hope that is in the Father. And all of those titles, I mean, they were his to claim. His mom knew it. Like, these are Jesus' titles, right? The Old Testament pointing to the Messiah. The Messiah has these titles. They were his. But there was a different lens through which Jesus saw the future hope that he was calling us to. So we see Jesus in humility being of the ground. Remember, we talked about that a little bit last week. The word humility related to humus, which is like earth, dirt, right? You know, of the ground. He lowered himself instead of taking advantage of his position. I don't know. Have any of you guys watched Undercover Boss? Yeah. It makes me think of that, right? Where the boss is like, okay, I'm going to disguise myself and I'm going to go work, you know, as a dishwasher, the CEO working as a dishwasher or preparing meals or whatever it is. One was like a waste management guy, so he's like, taking out the trash. Like, I just think of that. Of course, they're doing it for a TV show, right? Now, I hope that it's real. I don't know if the TV show is real, but like, I love what happens sometimes when they come in humility. And usually they find someone that's working for them that is in a very difficult position, right? Like, I can't pay my mortgage, or, my boss is like treating me not in a nice way, or whatever the case might be. And so then the CEO, COO, whoever comes in and kind of fixes the situation or gives them money or whatever the case might be, Just a small picture, I think, of that humility of Christ. He taught and demonstrated the kingdom of God, but all along the way, he moved people's focus away from himself and gave glory to the Father above himself, the hope of glory. We saw the Father's vision of hope, or he saw the Father's vision of hope and let it empower him to share that hope with every person who crossed his down-to-earth, dusty, earthy, humble, well-worn path. And that's, I think, the beauty of Jesus. And so I want to let him do that today with us. And so right now, I just want you to think about, like, what if you had a hope meter? Hope meter. Where is your hope meter right now? A scale from 0 to 100 or whatever, What would you say is your level of hope? Hope in what? Well, trusting that God has a plan for you. Trusting that if you're in a difficult situation with a relationship or your finances or whatever it might be, that God's got a plan for that, right? That you can trust him in that. Or, maybe it's just the future hope. Maybe it's hoping in our salvation. Like, does God really have me in his hands? Where is your hope meter right now? And so, you got it? You got your hope meter? What? It's like going all over the place. Jack's hope meter on his iPad. It's like up and down. It's all over the place. It probably is that complicated with us sometimes. So if your hope meter is low right now, I think that it's time to let Jesus point you back to the Father of hope and to fill up your hope meter. So we're going to do an exercise. And don't worry, it's not an exercise where you have to get out of your seat. So that's always good, right? This is a little bit of self-reflection. And I think that self-awareness really is the key to growth in our lives. And so I want to encourage you, don't check out right now. Really take this seriously, okay? And so I'm going to hand out some cards. I don't know if I could get a hand with this. Someone doesn't mind passing those out. And then there are some pens here.
You're on.
Yeah. I had some colorful cards, but they disappeared. And did Shannon take them? She did for kids' church. Here's what we're going to do, you guys, while those are being passed out. In a few minutes, I'm going to invite you to take a few minutes and close your eyes. And for the first minute, I want you to think about you're going to take the card and find the lined side of it, okay, and divide it in half. And we're going to use the left half right now, okay? And I want you to think about, with your eyes closed, the ways that you've been depending on yourself lately. And so maybe you've been depending on your decision-making abilities. Maybe you've been depending on your own feelings or your own impulses. Maybe your own desires, your own experience or practice or skills. So on the left-hand side of that card, if you want to, otherwise you can just think about them. If you don't want to write them down, that's fine too. But I want you to think about the ways that you've been depending on yourself. So let's go ahead and do that. Just take a minute to do that. Oops. So hopefully you're thinking of a few and jotting those down. Now for the second minute, what I'd like to ask you to do is take a few seconds and just, first of all, just kind of present those to the Lord. And just say, Lord, I ask you to take these things and I ask you to root out any pride that's in my life regarding these things that I've been dependent on my own for. So let's ask him to do that. And then what I want you to do is I want you to turn your attention to reflect on the Lord. And I want you to think about, what God has done, what he is doing in your life right now. And let this awareness of God's activity, let it just overwhelm you. And let it change the other side of the list, right? So let's go ahead and do that right now. Just pray to the Lord. Just ask him to root out any sort of pride as it relates to those things. And then begin to list some of the things that you've seen the Lord do or that you see him doing in your life right now. Just ask him about that. Lord, we repent of any pride that's there, that's been rooted, that we've let build up inside of us. God, just take those places where we've just totally depended on ourselves, where we haven't stopped and brought them before you, God, and asked you to take them. And help us to be more and more aware and sensitive to where you are already working in our lives and what you're already doing. As we just list those things out, God, just let them compel us to turn our focus back to you. How did you guys feel when you were kind of listing out your own dependencies? Did you feel a good deal of hope rising up inside of you as you were listing those out? I know I didn't. It's just so funny how you like realize, like, wait a minute, this is not hopefulness. This isn't dependency on the Lord. This is dependency on me, and that it just doesn't work, right? Like, so many times it doesn't play out well. And then we look at the other side and we go, wait a minute, this is a little different. When I think, and sometimes, you know what? Maybe some of you right now, like when we were doing the second half, you might have been like, I can't think of anything. Maybe you had trouble listing things that the Lord is doing on the right-hand side. And if you did, I want to encourage you, you might have to look backwards a little further. You might have to look at what the Lord has done previously in your life to remind you what he can and will do in this point, in this season of your life. And that's okay. Because he will. And we're going to ask the Lord to come and do that before we leave today. All right? And I felt so, just as I was praying about this is the word that the Lord gave me. Stuck. Stuck. And I felt like he was saying that there are some of you guys, your hope meter has been stuck at the same place for a long time. And that you really need a breakthrough to get that hope meter unstuck. Okay? Now, if we depend on ourselves to do that, we can't get it unstuck. That's why we need each other. Because we need to be praying for one another, and we need to be encouraging one another. We need to be spending time with the Lord. Those are the things that get us unstuck, right? It's like we know that, but for some reason, we decide, no, I can do it on my own anyway, right? I do that. No, I can handle it. I don't need to bother anybody else. Like, it's all good. Like, I'm just going to deal with it. And I have seen over and over and over again so many times where somebody said, you know what? Here I am, Lord. I'm just going to do what I need to do. I'm going to go ask somebody to pray over me. And so many times there's a word or something like that just, boom. I mean, that's why Lexi shared today. Because she has a testimony of getting unstuck. If he can do it for her, he can do it for you. Okay? So we're going to take time to pray right now, specifically for those who feel stuck. And this is what we're going to do. We're not going to come forward. Just where you are right now, like if you're like, I know, that's me, I've been stuck, just lift up your hand. And if there's somebody lifting up their hand near you, please go over and pray with them. So you're either stuck or you're unstuck and praying for someone else. Sound good? So you're stuck or you're unstuck and praying. So go ahead and just lift up your hand. Say, I'm stuck. All right. All right, let's surround them, you guys, and pray over them. So Robert needs some prayer there. Hannah, Cheryl, Jack, Joseph, Keith back there. If you guys will just surround them and let's begin to just pray over and encourage one another that we break into this season of hope. Season of hope.